Father, thank you. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for keeping us going, Lord. Keeping us going, Father. Hallelujah. Thank you for this time of fellowship every week. Your Torah. Open our eyes that we will see the wonderful things in your Torah. Amen. Amen. We're starting a new book tonight. We are now in the book of Numbers. Numbers. But it's not called Numbers, is it? It's not called Numbers. Anyone remember what it's called? What? In the wilderness. Bamidbar. It's called Bamidbar. If you picked up a Hebrew Bible, it wouldn't say Numbers. It would say Bamidbar. Because that's what this book's called. Go on. Bamidbar. In the wilderness, this book's called. Numbers is just an invented title. It's not what it's called at all. It sounds boring, doesn't it, the book of Numbers? It makes you not want to read it. Oh, I can't be bothered reading about a load of numbers. But it's not what it's called. It's called Bamidbar, in the wilderness. So I'll just do what I always do when we start a new book. What Torah is. Torah is the first 5 books of Moses, isn't it? First 5 books of the Bible. And the names in Hebrew reveal a lot more than the English names. The first book of the Torah is, what is it? Bereshit. In the beginning. And you can do that, you can shout out if you know the answers. So in the beginning is the first book. The second book is called Shemot. And what's that mean? Names. Names. In the beginning. Names. In the beginning, these are the names. Third book of the Bible is Vayikra. Vayikra, not Leviticus. It's Vayikra, which means and he called. Kara, called. And we are the called ones. We're called out. So in the beginning, these are the names God called. The fourth book is this one, Bamidbar, into the wilderness. And the final book is not Deuteronomy. It's Devarim. Devarim. Devar. The words. So the Torah is in the beginning. These are the names God called into the wilderness. And these are his words. That sounds a lot more like you want to read it. I want to understand this now, rather than those English titles. So we're in Bamidbar, the wilderness, very special place. Even what I've said there, Deuteronomy is Devarim.
What's the Hebrew for Deuteronomy?
Devarim. Which is that's what I was about to say then. You can see it in the word for the wilderness. The word for wilderness is Midbar, and the word for words, Deuteronomy, is Devarim, Debar. So even in the word of wilderness, you've got the word for word. Debar is in Midbar, and so it suggests to us that the place of the wilderness is the place where God speaks. It's the place to really listen. Which one? Devarim is D-E-V-A-R-I-M. Devarim, the plural for Devar, word. Devar is word. Devarim is words. And Devar is in Midbar. So in the word for wilderness is the word for word. So the place of the wilderness is the place where we can hear God speak to us. So the wilderness is not a bad thing. It's a good place. I'll prove that now. The Haftarah for this week is the prophet's portion. The prophet's portion for this week is Hosea. And it's probably one of the finest readings in the Tanakh. It's beautiful, isn't it, George? Hosea. Hosea, which means what? Salvation. Like we say, Hosanna, Hoshea, Hoshea. This is the prophet Hoshea. Hoshea, save, save. So, Hoshea, chapter 2, is it? Hoshea, chapter 2. This is the prophet's reading for this week. Ray will cover it tomorrow in more detail. So I'll just read it out for now. This is about the wilderness. Chapter 2, Hosea, verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will allure her. I will bring her into the Midbar, into the wilderness. That's why I'm saying this is a great place, the wilderness. Look what happens. God draws Israel into the wilderness. And what he will do there, and I will speak comfort to her. I will give her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor, which means trouble. He will turn that into a door of hope. Tikva. The national anthem is Israel. Ha, Tikva. I mean, this is Israel week. We're buzzing for Israel this week. Amen. We really are celebrating Israel, the 70th anniversary of Israel this week. Fantastic occasion. So if you haven't seen it, get it on YouTube. The White House website's got the full thing, about 70 minutes. We watched some of it last night. It was just a wonderful occasion, full of the gospel. Fantastic. So this is what God's doing. He will draw her into the wilderness, and the valley of trouble, Achor, as a door of hope. She shall sing there, as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up from the lands of Egypt. And it shall be in that day, says Jehovah, that you will call me my husband, and no longer call me Baal, which is translated as Lord. You won't be calling me Lord, Lord anymore. You'll be calling me husband. For I will take from her the names of the Baals, the lords, because that's what they'll all be coming up, won't they, saying? It says this, Yeshua said in the Gospels, in that day, they'll all be saying, look, going, oh, Lord, Lord. And he'll say, who are you? I don't know you. Where are you from? All those, Lord, Lord. He's got a name. For I will take from her the mouths, the names of the Baals, and they shall be remembered and they shall be remembered by their name no more. In that day, I will make a covenant for them, with the beasts of the field, with the birds of the air, and with the creeping things of the ground. Bow and sword of battle I will shatter from the earth, to make them lie down safely, because he is our shepherd. Amen. Verse 19, look, I will betroth you to me forever. This is part of the Jewish prayer every day, isn't it? Every day the faithful Jews pray this portion of scripture every day. I will betroth you to me forever. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness and justice, in loving kindness and mercy. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know, you shall know Jehovah. It shall come to pass. I mean, this is definite in it. How many times has Yah said it's going to come to pass in that day? It shall come to pass in that day that I will answer, says Jehovah. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. The earth shall answer with grain, new wine, and oil. They shall answer Jezreel. Then I will sow her for myself in the earth. I will have mercy on her who had not obtained mercy. Then I will say to those who are not my people, you are my people. And they shall say, you are my God. Amen. I know some of you like that passage. It's a wonderful passage. Get familiar with that passage. That's the reading for this week. It's a wilderness passage. So now let's go to Revelation. I know you like Revelation. And you're all like that. Woo. Well, don't think that the wilderness was a thing of the past. Don't think for 1 minute the wilderness was just a historical event. Far from it. It's a future event. So before we even get there, let me just read this from 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10. We've read this a few times. You know, for all, I'm amazed at the amount of end-time believers, you know, all these end-time believers who don't understand this. Because this is what the New Testament says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. You want to get into the end times, you better get into the Torah. You'd better be into the Torah. Don't be coming up with all your 666 stuff all the time. That's not food. That's not going to prepare you. That's just going to titillate you and get you all, 666. I mean, that's part of it, but that's not the be-all and end-all. If you want to be into the end times and you want to be prepared for what's about to come upon the earth, you need to be in the Torah, because this is what it says. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. If you read it all yourself, but when we get to verse 11, all the first bit's showing us that this is all about the journey of Israel in the wilderness. All of Israel's journey and all of the things that takes place, especially in this book, especially in this book. This is a really exciting book, this book. It's not numbers. It's about some amazing events. And it says that all of these things in verse 11, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11, all these things happened to them as examples. And they were written down for our instruction, upon what? Whom the end of the ages has come. So if you want to be ready for these end times, end of the age times that we're in, we need to see the instruction that's been written for us in the Torah. The journey Israel went through is an example for us. It is. It is. So go back to Revelation. Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. And verse 13. Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle. Well, that she might fly where? Into the wilderness. And that's why I'm saying, don't think the wilderness is history. The wilderness is future. The wilderness is for the time of great tribulation. Those that remain, those that are still here, I have a hope that there will be a taking away before this event. We'll find out soon. But either way, those that will be getting taken away will be because they've been tested and found faithful, because they are doing something about it. If there's any chance of escape, it's because you'll be busy and faithful. Those who are left behind will need to understand this. Because the woman will have the wings of an eagle, and she will fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished, basically for 3.5 years, for a time, times, and half a time.
Chapter 12.
Oh, 12, sorry, yeah. Chapter 12, I beg your pardon. I did. I was wrong. Sorry, beg your pardon, everyone. Chapter 12, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura. Chapter 12. Yeah, it's an amazing chapter, chapter 12. You know, last year, a lot of us were getting carried away and excited because chapter 12 starts off with the sign in the heavens. That great sign in the heavens, remember? The woman clothed with the sun, the moon on her feet, and a garland of 12 stars around her head. And a lot of people said that star constellation happened last year on September the 23rd. Well, I can tell you right now that actually didn't happen last year. I don't think it did. If it did, there was only a few that got off. But it didn't happen last year. But a lot of people were suggesting these things, and it didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen. But I think it was a significant time to show us that we really have entered into these last days now. And so this is talking about the final 3.5 years that this woman, whoever she is, will be taken and nourished in the wilderness for 3.5 years. Verse 15 of chapter 12. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. That's what Isaiah says, isn't it? When the enemy comes in like a flood, he would raise up a standard. Well, here in verse 16, the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua the Messiah. So don't think that the wilderness is the past. The wilderness is very much the future. And God will protect his people in the wilderness. And that ties into what we read from Hosea. At that time, he will speak comfort to her. And he will betroth her to himself. So, this is what we all got to look forward to. Right, back to the Numbers, which isn't Numbers, Bamidbar. And I'll try to use Bamidbar more often than not, but we have to just say Numbers so you know what we're talking about. But try to get familiar with the real titles, the real names of these books. So, Bamidbar, chapter 1, verse 1. Now Jehovah spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of meeting, on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt. So we got a lovely time reference. Israel came out of Egypt about a year ago. They've been now in the wilderness for about a year, and in that time we've had most of Exodus, most of Leviticus, and we've seen what's gone on, haven't we? God brought them out, gave the Torah. He didn't want to know. He said to Moses, you go in here for us, Moses. You come back and tell us what happened, what he said. And then sure enough, 40 days later, the covenant was broke, wasn't it? The covenant got broke. The covenant got broke with the sin of the golden calf, and the Levitical priesthood was set up. And we need to discuss that tonight. The Levitical priesthood got set up. All the instructions were given for the tabernacle. And that's what we've been doing for the last year in the wilderness. Now, it's the first day of the second month of the second year. Now we're about to get going. The tribe of Israel, the camp, will start to set out during this book. This book will end in about 38 years' time. The book of Numbers takes you right through now. Right through. This generation will die off in this book, and the next generation will arrive. And that's what Numbers covers. You know, Leviticus only covered about 8 days. Leviticus was only a few days. It was just one continual stream of revelation from the Almighty, wasn't it? Telling us what holiness was and how to live. That was all Leviticus. Well, Numbers is different. It takes you through more or less 40 years. But we're already a year into the journey. So it takes us through 38, 39 years. Huh? The wanderings, yeah. That's what Numbers is all about. That's why it's such a lesson for us. The things that will happen in this book, we really need to learn from it. So we've been in the wilderness a year now. This is the second year, first day of the second month. Verse 2, it says in our Bible, take a census. Take a census, it says. Which is rubbish. It doesn't say that at all in Hebrew. In Hebrew it says, nasa, rosh. Lift the head, it says. Not take a census. It says, lift the head. Lift the head of all the congregation of the children of Israel, by their families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male individually. And that final thing there, every male, in Hebrew, it's Golgotha. You've heard of this, haven't you? Golgotha. What's that remind you of? It reminds you of Golgotha. Because what's Golgotha? The place of the skull. What's Golgotha? Skull. And that's what it's saying. Like we say it in Scouts, we go, oh, there was about 10 heads there, and we count the number of heads. Well, that's what God does. And he's saying, I want every head counted. Lift up every head and count each head individually. And that's Rambam. We love the Rambam. Rambam's one of the greatest sages of Israel. And the way he interpreted this, he was saying God didn't just want a big collective numbering. He wanted every person to be visited individually. And every single person's head to be lifted up. So that every single one would know that they've got a place in this camp. And it's not just some rabble and just count them randomly. Visit everyone. I want every single male to have their head counted. That's what God wants to do. Lift the heads. That's what he wants us to do. Lift our heads. That's what Yeshua said, didn't he? when you see the day approaching, lift your heads, look up, for your redemption is drawing nigh. And that's what God's doing here. He wants them all to get back into their identity. They've been slaves in Egypt. They don't understand the covenant. They've been slaves in Egypt, getting oppressed and getting battered, and haven't had any covenant understanding for years. And now God's trying to bring them into orderly ranks and wants every one of them to know their identity in this nation.
Does one of the Psalms say, lift up your head to the coming King?
Yeah. Yeah, we were saying this last week. It's, we should pray this way. We should be looking down. We should be looking up. Look up. Look up. And that's what this is saying. Not take a census. Lift the head. Nasa Rosh. Lift the head of everyone individually, from 20 years old and above. All who are able to go to war in Israel. You and Aaron shall number them by their armies. So if you're into spiritual warfare, here it is. God's preparing his people as an army. And every one of them who is able to go to war. This is the word for war and armies. You know this word? It's Saba. You know that? C-S-A-V-A. We know the name, don't we, of the Lord of hosts. Yehovah Sabaoth. Yehovah Sabaoth. Yehovah, the commander of the hosts. Commander of the armies. Well, that's the word Saba. And that's what God's saying here. Get them all into an army mentality. Let them know that they're in a battle here. This is a battle scenario. And that's the way it is for us today, isn't it? We are in a war. We have got war going on. Spiritual warfare is taking place in all of our lives.
And the Ephesians says, put the whole armor.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense when you realise you're in a battle that you would have to put the armour of God on. That's great. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against spiritual principalities and powers. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So this spiritual warfare is in our own lives, isn't it? We talk about it all the time here. The flesh is at war against the spirit. For control of our lives. What are we going to do? Be spiritual people or carnal people? Well, that's up to you. It depends whether you do this, whether you're engaged in this warfare, whether you put your full armour on. It helps to know what it even is. It helps to know what it is. You know, it starts off with the belt of truth, a breastplate of righteousness, our feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking up the shield of faith that we can quench the fiery darts of the enemy, taking hold of the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and the helmet of the hope of salvation. I mean, they're the weapons of our warfare. This is the armour of God, and we will not prevail if we don't do these things. So we need to get familiar. We covered this when we were doing the priestly garments, that the priestly garments really correspond to these spiritual armour. So I'll just mention this now, that when it goes through all this, it's quite repetitive, all of the tribes, apart from the Levites, they don't get reckoned in this, they come into it later. And just in case you think that these are different in some way, well, they are. But in chapter 4, let me just read this. In chapter 4, when God is saying to take a census or lift the head of the Levites, in chapter 4, verse 3, he says it this way: from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who enter the service to do the work in the tabernacle of meeting. But that word, all who enter the service, is the same word for armies and making war. It's the same word. Why it's been translated different, I don't know. But it's the same Hebrew word, Sabah. So you can see even the Levites, they're part of this army as well. Even though they're not numbered in the way the others are numbered, and even though it doesn't say in our English translation that they are being prepared for going to war, in Hebrew it says They are Sabbath to the same as to do war. So it's a different set of responsibilities, but it's all part of the same family, same nation.
Yeah.
It's about warfare.
In this translation, it says core, like an army core.
Yeah.
It says core.
Well, that gives you a bit more of a hint, doesn't it? So that's a bit more faithful to the scriptures. Yeah. All right. Chapter 1, verse 4. And with you there shall be a man from every tribe, each one of the head of his father's house. Verse 5. These are the names of the men who shall stand with you. And he's going to go through them all now. Very repetitive, so we won't cover it all. The first one is Reuben. And the chief of that tribe is Elizur, the son of Shedor. From Simeon, Shelumiel, the son of Zuri Shaddai. This is the one I like to focus on. From Judah, Nashon, the son of Aminadab. So we just go forward to Matthew, the genealogy of Yeshua, Matthew chapter 1. I mean, there's a royal wedding tomorrow, isn't there? Someone mentioned it. Some royal wedding going on. Well, I'm not interested. There's only one wedding I'm interested in, and that's mine. Our wedding to Yeshua. The bridegroom from heaven's coming for his bride. That's the only royal wedding I'm interested in. And this is the genealogy of the real royal family now. Not that nonsense. The real royal family. The real royal family comes from this guy, Judah, via Nashon, the son of Aminadab. Well, here it is in Matthew 1. Matthew chapter 1, verse 4. Ram begot Aminadab. Aminadab begot Nashon. Here they are. And Nashon begot Salmon. Salmon begot Boaz by Rahab. Boaz begot Obed by Ruth. Obed begot Jesse. And Jesse begot David the king. See how connected this is? There's the royal line. The royal line of Judah. Here they are. And we can trace it all the way through. And it's in the New Testament. The lineage of Messiah, Yeshua, the son of David. What a family this is. I mean, what a family. Because Judah, he was mad, wasn't he? With the way he had his kids. Remember, with Tamar, the prostitute. And out of that mad relationship, Perez come. Perez, he's part of the line. Then Salmon begot Boaz by Rahab. Rahab the harlot from Jericho. I mean, what a line this is. What a redemptive line this is. Don't have any chips on your shoulder about your genealogies, because look at this one. Anyway, so Judah, you can just see the relevance there, kind of. And then it goes through them all. Verse 16. These were chosen from the congregation, leaders of their fathers' tribes, heads of the divisions in Israel. Then Moshe and Aaron took these men who had been mentioned by name, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they recited their ancestry by families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and above, each one individually. Lovely that. All coming back into their understanding of this wonderful family, going right back now, remembering where they've come from, remembering their generations, reminding themselves of this journey that they've been on from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then the 12 patriarchs. They're all identifying with who they are. They probably lost touch with their identity as slaves in Egypt. Probably didn't have that identity thing going on. I love the names of these people. A lot of the names that you'll see, you study them, they've all got, well, loads of them have got like the derivative of El in there. El, you can pick a few of them out at random, but you'll see lots of El, all parts of the name of the title of God, the title of Elohim, El. And they've all got El going on. But what you'll notice is none of them have got Yah in there. Yah. Like later on we'll come across people like Isaiah, which is really Yeshayahu. That's his name really, it's not Isaiah. It's Yeshayahu. And Elijah is Eliyahu. And Jeremiah is Yirmiyahu. And they've all got, like Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin's got Yah in there. But this generation never had any Yahs in there. Because remember when they came out of Egypt, or before God brought them out, and Moses is going, what's your name? I forgot, what's your name? What am I going to tell them what your name is? And God's saying, why are you asking me name? Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, they knew my name. Abraham and Isaac and Jacob knew his name, didn't they? Because they built altars and sacrificed and called on the name of Jehovah. They knew his name. But after a few years in Egypt, under bondage, we can see that the name of God got forgot. Well, that's like today, isn't it? That's like today. Not many people are familiar with his name. Not many people are comfortable using his name. It's true, isn't it? Because we've inherited lies and been taken away from our roots of our faith, really. Well, you'll see as Israel comes out now that a lot of the names will incorporate his name, Yah. Like I've said, Isaiah, Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu. Well, they're all missing from here. So that's just a note. Verse 19. So each one's been numbered individually. As verse 19, as Yahovah commanded Moshe, so he numbered them. And that's another one, I've got to keep mentioning these things. Numbered them. It's in Hebrew, pachad, which means visited them. This is a personal visitation. This is a personal visitation from the Creator to each one, the way he wants to visit us, each one.
A one-to-one.
Yes, a one-to-one. That's what this faith's all about. You need to know this, that he died for me. Individually. You need to know that he loves me and he loves you. It's great to know that Yeshua died for the whole world and that God so loved the whole world that he sent his son. But you've got to know that that was for you individually. You have to know this. You have to know he died for me.
It's like parents for children. They love each child individually, not collectively.
Yeah, that's right. It's lovely one-on-one time. It's lovely with your children, isn't it? So that's what that is. See, this word that he numbered them, pachad, is the word visit. And the first time we've seen this was when God visited Sarah. He didn't number Sarah. He visited Sarah and brought a wonderful promise to Sarah. And then we saw it in Exodus chapter 49, just before Joseph was going to die. And he swore then, he promised, he said, look, take my bones with you when God visits you, for he will surely visit you. Visit, pachad, not number, visit. And then we saw it in Exodus 3, when Moses was saying, wow, God has visited us just the way he promised. Well, this is it now. This is the time of visitation now. That's what this word is. Number is not helpful. Pachad, visitation, is much more helpful because God is doing exactly what he promised to do through Joseph. He is visiting the children of Israel individually and putting destiny into there, giving them vision. Going, come on, I've got a promised land for you. I've brought you out of Egypt. I'm not going to leave you here to die. I want you to get hold of this. But the sad history is, two fellas grasped hold of this. Joshua and Caleb grasped hold of this. And they actually entered the promised land. Everyone else of these died. Everyone else of these died. Everyone else of these that were numbered, visited over the age of 20, will die in this book. And will not inherit the land of promises. Will not go in. Why won't they go in? Because they did not hear God's voice. They didn't trust what he said.
Like Jesus said, we know the time of visitation.
That's exactly the same. It's exactly the same then, George. And it's exactly the same today. It's exactly the same today. Just what he said to Israel, that they did not recognize the time of their visitation. It's what he's going to say to many in these end days now. Huh? It's very somber. It's very somber. That's why we are full on here that Yeshua is coming back soon. We're not ashamed of this. Not ashamed what anyone wants to say about this. Yeshua's coming soon. And I'm not going to hide my light under a bushel and play religious games like I've been told to. Oh, we don't talk about that here. No one knows the day or the hour. It's going to be like a thief in the night. What? You serious? It's going to be like that for them. Sudden destruction is going to come upon people like that. We should be aware of the times. We should be, more than any other generation, we should be aware of the times we're in. Whoa! Visitation. So now I'll just read verse 20. It says, now the children of Reuben, Israel's oldest son, their genealogies, by their families, by their father's house, according to the number of names, every male individually from 20 years old and above, all who were able to go to war. Those who were visited, numbered, Pachad, of the tribe of Reuben, were 46,500. And it goes through now the same the same sentence, the same set of words for each one of the tribes, and gives their numbers. And it's set out the way they're going to be set out in the camps. It goes through Reuben and Simeon and Gad, and they're all going to congregate in the south side of the camp. And then it goes through Judah and Issachar and Zebulun, and they all congregate on the east side of the camp. And then it goes through Ephraim and Manasseh and Benjamin, and they all gather on the west side of the camp. And then it goes through Dan and Asher and Naphtali, and they all gather on the north side of the camp. So God's setting them all up in the way he wants them all to live around the camp, around the tabernacle. They're all set up where they'll live. But then we get to verse 47, and it says, but the Levites were not numbered. The Levites were not numbered among them by their father's tribe. So verse 48, for Yahovah had spoken to Moshe, saying, only the tribe of Levi you shall not number, nor take a census. Don't lift their heads in that way among the children of Israel. But you shall appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony, over all its furnishings, and over all the things that belong to it. They shall carry the tabernacle and all its furnishings. They shall attend to it and the camp around the tabernacle. And when the tabernacle is to go forward, the Levites shall take it down. That's the thing, you see. Only the Levites were to be involved with this work of the tabernacle. No one else could be involved. No one else. No. You cannot have anything to do with the taking down and the erecting and the carrying of anything to do with the tabernacle unless you're a Levite. That's going to be important in a minute. Verse 51, so when the tabernacle is to be set up and taken down, the Levites shall set it up. The outsider, the stranger who comes near, shall be put to death. I mean, Yah is serious about this. The children of Israel, verse 52, shall pitch their tents. Everyone by his own camp, everyone by his own standard, according to their armies. But the Levites, they shall camp around the tabernacle of the testimony, that there may be no wrath on the congregation of the children of Israel. And the Levites shall keep charge of the tabernacle of the testimony. Thus the children of Israel did according to all that Yah commanded Moshe, so they did. So what's going on here is the Levites are like the special guard. As I said, chapter 4, you can see that they are part of this army as well. In fact, they're even more part of it, like the real special guard, like the real guard, the one they have to guard the tabernacle. Don't let anyone near it, because if anyone comes near it, they'll die. So guard this. Don't let any strays come in and start trying to just carry on with themselves. And we see this later on in the Torah, in this book. We see that, makes sense of this now when we get there. Numbers, well, this book. Bamidbar, yeah, amen. Bamidbar, number 25, chapter 25. Don't have to go there unless you want to. But look what happens in chapter 25. It goes mad. We'll get there in a few weeks, but in Numbers 25, this is when Balaam has come against Israel, and he gives the plot how to really bring Israel down. And it's through sexual immorality, isn't it? Worshipping false gods, sexual immorality. And this all breaks out. And so in verse 7 of chapter 25, it says, Now when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, because this man of Israel was carrying on with this Midianite woman. They were having sexual immorality right at the tabernacle. So Phinehas does exactly what he's supposed to do. He's a Levite. He's been charged by Jehovah to protect the tabernacle and don't let anyone come near it and do these things. So what he does, he takes a javelin. He went after the man of Israel into the tent. Into the tent. Into the tent. That's what they were carrying on. Went into the tent and thrust both of them through. The man of Israel and the woman through her body. So the plague was stopped among the children of Israel. Those who died in the plague were 24,000. It's just give us all the numbers there of all the different tribes. And at the end of the book, in like chapter 26, there's a second census. And they get all counted again for the second generation. And we find some of them have gone up by a few thousand. Some of them have gone down by a few thousand. The tribe of Simeon is decimated. And we can deduce from that this guy in chapter 25 that Phinehas has to put a javelin through, he's a Simeonite. He's a leader of the tribe of Simeon. Look how he's carrying on. So we can deduce that the tribe of Simeon got decimated at this event. The Simeonites were carrying on at this stage, and that's why their numbers went right down. Right down. Verse 10 of chapter 25, then Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the children of Israel, because he was zealous with my zeal among them, so that I did not consume the children of Israel in my zeal. Therefore say, behold, I give to him my covenants of shalom, and it shall be to him and his descendants after him a covenant, an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for his God and made atonement for the children of Israel. So Phinehas just does here what God had commissioned him and his family to do. Guard the tabernacle. Guard it. Don't let it get defiled. And that's exactly what Phinehas does. Kills people because they were they were defiling the sanctuary. Fair enough. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. We've got about 20 minutes left, haven't we? So let's just skip through this. Chapter 2. And then we'll get to chapter 3 and finish off there. Chapter 2. Yah spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, every one of the children of Israel shall camp by his own standard beside the emblems of his father's house. They shall camp some distance from the tabernacle of meeting. On the east side, towards the rising of the sun, those of the standard of the forces with Judah shall camp according to their armies. Here's Nashon again. And Nashon, the son of Aminadab, shall be the leader of the children of Judah. And his army was numbered at 74,600. Those who camp next to him shall be of the tribe of Issachar. And Nathanael, the son of Zuar, shall be the leader of the children of Issachar. And his army was numbered at 54,400. Then comes the tribe of Zebulun. And Eliab, the son of Helon, shall be the leader of the children of Zebulun. And his army was numbered at 57,400. All who were numbered according to their armies of the forces with Judah, 186,400. These shall break camp first. And that's the thing, when the camp of Israel moved, these were the first. And I like to think now, in what God's doing in these days, that we're the first amongst many. The first amongst many who are starting to move with God and starting to realise, oh, we have got to return to the ancient paths. We've got to come out of the religious things we've inherited. It's those who are of the tribe of Judah and Naphtali and Zebulun that will break camp first. And then the rest of the children of Israel will follow. You're not going to get Benjamin and Gad and Asher. They're not first. They've got to wait. Judah will go first. When Judah starts to move, and Naphtali and Zebulun, then the other tribes will catch on. And so we've just got to keep doing what we're doing and keep going. Because those of us that have heard this call, we're the first of many. Throughout the world, this is happening, isn't it? Throughout the world, more and more are waking up and realising we have inherited religious lies. We've been playing religious games for years and thinking that we can just invent a system of worshipping God. Well, we can't. We need to worship God the way he's asked us to worship him. Keep holy his holy times. Do what he has said to do. Call holy what he has called holy, and not invent man-made religious systems. So it's the tribe of Judah, Issachar and Zebulun, sorry, never said them wrong, that they're the ones who will break camp first. And then you go through the rest of them. Verse 18, on the west side shall be the standard of the forces with Ephraim, according to their armies, and the leader of the children of Ephraim shall be Eli, Shammah, the son of Ammihud, and so on. The reason I mention this is because geographically, this is the way it's played out. It's Ephraim, Manasseh. These are, anyone who just knows biblical history, etc., knows that these tribes became the Western nations. Ephraim, Manasseh, is Britain and America. This is the way it is. The Western nations are these ones. And that's what it says in Isaiah, that he will call them from the west, and they will come trembling from the west. Who? Ephraim will, and Manasseh. So wherever they were set up, you can see it's played out that these tribes migrated and became the Western nations.
And the scripture speaks in the New Testament about the commonwealth of Israel.
Yeah.
And there's a commonwealth today, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
Speak up for it.
Oh, sorry, I apologise. So in the New Testament, it speaks about the commonwealth of Israel.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a commonwealth in existence today. You know what I mean? You know, and as you said, the Western nations, so it's appropriate to name the word is there.
Yeah, it is. They're going to come from the west. It says that in Hosea as well. You know what I mean? That they will come from the west. Ephraim will come from the west. So where they were set up here, sounds. Right, it's only like a few minutes. Let me get straight into chapter 3 now. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is quite interesting, this. We haven't got a lot of time, so let's just get into it. Chapter 3. We've mentioned this before and we've referred to this in the past, so now we get a chance to really look at it and what it says. It's quite clear, this. You don't get this if you just watch the Ten Commandments and, you know, Yul Brynner and all the rest of it. You don't learn Torah by watching the Ten Commandments. You learn Torah by reading the Torah. And we haven't been taught this, but this is what God says. Chapter 3. Look what he says in verse 11. Then Yahovah spoke to Moshe, saying, Now behold, I myself have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel. Underline this word. Really look at what it says here. I've taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the children of Israel. Therefore, the Levites shall be mine, because all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck all the firstborn in the lands of Egypt, I sanctified, set apart to myself all the firstborn in Israel, man and beast. They shall be mine. I am Jehovah. So you can see here, it's clear, when God brought Israel out of Egypt, at that stage, he went, the firstborn are mine. All of the firstborn, I want them to be the priests. That's who I've got in mind as the priests, the firstborn. This was the original plan of God. But now he's saying, now, it's changed now. I've changed it now. Now, it's going to be the Levites instead of the firstborn. Is that clear? Can you see that? That's clear, isn't it? God has changed the plan. It's no longer all the firstborn. It's now just the Levites. That wasn't what was initially planned. Not at all. That's very, very, very important, so we need to look at that. When God brought us out of Egypt, he said, all the firstborn. Now that takes us right back to the Passover message, doesn't it? It was the firstborn that were going to die. Unless you got a lamb and brought it into your house on the 10th day and kept hold of it till the 14th day and then killed it on the 14th day and put its blood on your doorpost and your lintels, that night the angel of death passed over those with the blood. That night the angel of death passed over, didn't he? And spared all of the firstborn that had put the blood of the lamb on their doorposts. Yeah, the firstborn were the ones redeemed. Yeah, let's go back to Exodus 19. Exodus 19 is just before Yah gave the 10 words. He just brought them out of Egypt. About 50 days had passed from coming out of Egypt to the time at Sinai when Yah was about to give the 10 words and make this covenant with Israel. He said in chapter 19, verse 5, Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenants, then you shall be a special treasure, am segula, a special treasure to me above all people. For all the earth is mine, all the earth is yours. And you, if you will keep my covenants, if you will hear and obey my voice, you shall be to me a kingdom of priests. A kingdom of priests, not just a tribe, one tribe of priests. No, a whole kingdom of priests I want. I want a whole kingdom of priests. Now we found out that it was being the firstborn of every household would have been priests. That's the way God wants it. The firstborn should be the priest of each house and teach his household the ways of God. That's how God wants his kingdom to operate. He didn't want some tribe, didn't want some set up just some one tribe to be the priesthood. That's not God's plan. That's what. Why is this come about? Because they didn't do this. They didn't do this, did they? They didn't obey his voice. Never mind, they didn't obey his voice. They didn't want to even hear his voice. He said to Moses, "Oh, you go and talk to him, Moses. If we listen, he'll kill us. His voice will kill us. You go and speak to him, and you come back, and you be our mediator. We'd rather have religion We'd rather have a religious organisation than have a real individual one-on-one relationship with the creator of the universe. We'd rather have some vicar. We'd rather have some pastor. We'd rather have some fella who does it all for us. We can't be bothered spending the time. We can't be bothered spending time studying the word of God for ourselves. We'd rather get some lad to do it for us. So you do it for us, will you, Moses? This is why the tragedy of the sin of the golden calf happened, wasn't it? He didn't do this. It was 40 days later, the sin of the golden calf took place, didn't it? And who were the ones that came to Moses at that time? He said, all those who are for Yahovah, come to me, and let each one take his sword and go throughout the camp, and let each one kill his neighbour. And this is what the Levites did. He went round and killed 3,000 people the day the covenant was broke. The day the covenant was broke, 3,000 died. And that's what Yah's saying now. This wasn't my plan. When I brought you out of Egypt, I wanted a kingdom of priests. I didn't just want one tribe. I wanted us all to be part of this. But now, it's changed now. So now it's just going to be these Levites.
And now we're a holy nation.
Well,
now we're a holy royal priesthood.
Well, that's the point. That's why I was saying this now. Because hopefully now we can see what Hebrews is all about. So let's just go there. Hebrews 7 should be good, I would think. Yeah. Hebrews 7. Hebrews is virtually, most of it, isn't it? Hebrews is about Melchizedek, isn't it? Melchizedek is Hebrews, and Hebrews is teaching us what this was about. And so let's read it. Hebrews 7, verse 11. Therefore, if perfection were through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should arise according to the order of Melchizedek, and not be called according to the order of Aaron? Good question. I mean, that's a great question. If God set up the Levitical priesthood, why change it? Why change it? If God set up the Levitical priesthood, why change it? Why change it? Here's your answer. Verse 12. For the priesthood being changed of necessity, there is also a change of the law. Now that doesn't mean a change to this religion that we've been part of, where there is no Torah. That's not what it's saying. That's not teaching that the Torah is being done away with. That's not what it's saying. It's saying there's a change in the law. It means the Levitical priesthood is now finished. Now we are back to what God originally wanted. We are now back to what you've just said, Marion. We are now in the position that Peter describes in 1 Peter chapter 2. You know this one. 1 Peter chapter 2 is exactly what we read in Exodus 19 before. Exodus 19 promised that if we would obey his voice, he would make us into a kingdom of priests, a special treasure, a holy nation. Well, 1 Peter's showing us that that's the situation we're in now. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, not just a priesthood, a royal priesthood now. What's royal? Melchizedek. What's Melchizedek? King, Melech, king of righteousness. So this is the royal priesthood, is the Melchizedek priesthood. You're not part of the Levitical priesthood anymore. You don't have to start coming in with your Levitical DNA and your Levitical genealogies anymore. No, if you're born again and if you're filled with the Spirit of God, you are part of the royal priesthood. It's true. If we don't understand priesthood, then we're playing games. We're playing religion. If we're playing religion, I'd rather God shut this down. I'd rather God end this if this is religion. If anyone here is playing religious games, I'd please pray that God would remove it from us. Because I don't want any leaven here. I don't want to be infected by leaven of religion. It's very infectious. Beware the yeast, the hypocrisy of religious people. If you're playing religious games, go back to church. You don't belong in this if you're playing religious games. Sorry if that offends you. I do not care. It's too important to be playing religious games. I mean it. I mean it. Wasted too much of my life playing religious games with religious people. I want truth. I want a proper fellowship. People that want to be priests. People that want to lay down their lives. Playing games, play somewhere else. We are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvellous light. That's what this priesthood's about, isn't it? If you're a true priesthood, you'll be doing these things. You'll be praising him and thanking him and wanting to understand more of how we do this, how we operate as priests, how we intercede. Praying, I've been praying a lot this week, Zechariah 12, because he says, I'll make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the nations, and that's what's happening right now. The part of Zechariah 12 is, and I will pour out my spirit of supplication. And I want to be part of that. I want to be used by God to supplicate and pray, and do the business. I want to play religion. Who would want to play religion? Well, plenty of people do. So I pray that we'd be delivered of that. So can you see what's getting said here? The Levitical priesthood was initiated here. It came about because of sin. And this is what Galatians is teaching. Galatians, I'm just going to carry on. Galatians is teaching this. Galatians chapter 3 is teaching this. Galatians chapter 3. You'll never understand this until you start to read scripture in light of this. The two priesthoods. We often talk in Galatians 4 about the two covenants, and Paul's saying two covenants here. One Sinai, bondage. One is Zion. One is the heavenly Jerusalem. One is the earthly Jerusalem, bondage. One is the heavenly Jerusalem. Two different covenants, two different priesthoods. Levitical priesthood, Melchizedek priesthood. It's saying in Galatians 3, what purpose then is the law? What purpose the law? And it's talking about the Levitical law when it says this. What purpose the Levitical, not the Torah, not the 10 words. You've got to read the whole thing in context, and it's talking about the Levitical priesthood and its Levitical law. What purpose the law? It was added because of transgressions, because of the sin of the golden calf. The Levitical priesthood came. Because God said to Moses, didn't he, after the sin of the golden calf, lad, I'm going to wipe these out now. I'm wiping them out. I'm going to destroy them all and start again with you, Moses. If you leave me, that's what I'm going to do. And Moses realised, I better not go then. I better stay and intercede then. And God went, sound. Nice one. I won't destroy them now. But what I will do, I will have to implement a change in the law. Wherever there's a change in the priesthood, there's a change in the law. And that changed from a Melchizedek priesthood, which we came out of Israel under. The priest at that stage was Melchizedek. And then it changed to the Levitical priesthood. Where there's a change in the priesthood, there's got to be a change in the law. What was the law added for? The Levitical law. Because of transgressions. Well, until it's got an end point. You can see it's got to end somewhere. Till the seed should come. To whom the promise was made. And it was appointed through angels by the hand of a mediator. And so that's what this is saying. that the Levitical law was there to lead us to the Messiah. But once the Messiah came, the Levitical law, the Levitical priesthood had no further need of it. No further need of these animal sacrifices anymore. Once the Messiah had come, once he died on the cross and said, it's finished, that's part of what was finished. The Levitical law and the Levitical priesthood. Over. Finished. And this is exactly what Hebrews is teaching if we take the time to study it. It's clear. It's so clear. Right, I'm going to just finish off now, 5 minutes or so. So that's the Levitical bit. Back into chapter 3, Bamidbar, Numbers. And then what happens here is interesting. Verse 40. Because, let's just read it. Then Yah said to Moshe, number all the firstborn. This is Numbers 3, verse 40. Then Yah said to Moshe, number all the firstborn males of the children of Israel, from a month old and above, and take the number of their names. And you shall take the Levites for me, I'm Jehovah, instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel. And the livestock of the Levites, instead of the firstborn among the livestock of the children of Israel. So Moshe numbered all the firstborn among the children of Israel, as Yah commanded him. All the firstborn males, according to the number of names, from a month old and above, of those who were numbered of them, were 22,273. Back in verse 39, God had commanded that all of the Levites from a month old were numbered. And that turned out at 22,000. So there's got to be a swap here. He's saying instead of all the firstborn, which number 22,273, I want the Levites. But there's only 22,000 of them. So we've got 273 left over. What are we going to do with them 273? We can't do a swap for Levites, because we've run out of Levites to swap them with. So there's 273 people left over. What are we going to do? And then it says, verse 46, and for the redemption of the 273 of the firstborn of the children of Israel, who are more than the number of Levites, you shall take 5 shekels for each one individually. You shall take them in the currency of the shekel of the sanctuary, the shekel of 20 gerahs. And you shall give the money with which the excess number of them is redeemed to Aaron and his sons. So Moshe took the redemption money from those who were over and above those who were redeemed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the children of Israel, he took the money, 1,365 shekels, which is 5 times 273, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. And Moshe gave their redemption money to Aaron and his sons, according to the word of Jehovah, as Jehovah commanded Moshe. Well, the good news is what 1 Peter says. 1 Peter, don't have to go there, just one scripture. 1 Peter, chapter 1, verse 18. Is it? Yeah, verse 18. Knowing that you were not redeemed with corruptible things like silver. We're not like these. We're not part of that priesthood. We were not redeemed with silver or gold from our aimless conduct received by tradition from our fathers, but we were redeemed with the precious blood of Messiah, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. So you can see the difference here. We're not part of the Levitical priesthood. There's no redemption money for us. We're not redeemed with silver and gold. We are redeemed by the precious blood of the Lamb, because we're part of a different priesthood, aren't we? We're all priests now. It's not just a Levitical priesthood. I hope this makes some sort of sense, but the main thing is, I hope it gets you from a religious mindset of going to church and just doing religious things like that, to understand you are actually a priest, each one of you. You know the way it started off, each head be lifted up individually. Well, I just pray that each head here, each head, each heart will be lifted up here tonight individually, Father, to bring us out of the bondage and the shackles of religion. I've done it for years, Lord. Thought I was doing you some sort of favour by going to church. Thought I was doing you a favour by reading your word and being religious. and doing my daily Bible reading plan and think I was doing you a favour. Religious idiot I was. Father, I just pray that each head will be lifted in you tonight to understand that you've called us to something far greater than religion. Something far more important than religion. Deliver us from that mindset, Father. So many people are trapped and ensnared with the religious mindset. And I pray you will break that chain, Father. Break that bondage, Father, so that we can serve you as a royal priesthood, Father. As you've called us to be, a royal priesthood, redeemed not with silver and gold, but literally redeemed by the blood of the Messiah, the Lamb of God, without spot and blemish. So please, Father, do this wonderful work in our lives of revealing our identity to us, so that we may fulfill the calling on our lives, Lord, to be a priesthood and give thanks to your name. Father, the love of God, the grace of Yeshua the Messiah, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with each one of us this Shabbat and this coming week, Father. Amen. Amen, everyone. Shabbat shalom.